This week we have a NFC North rivalry, Packers versus Bears in Chicago. The Packers finally passed their bye week. Now we can get back into some Packers football. And if we look at these two teams, the Bears have not been playing well recently. They've lost 3 straight after winning 3 in a row before this 3-game losing streak. The Packers, before the bye week, lost to the Lions after winning 4 straight games. And so now when we look at the NFC North, the Lions are 8-1. The Vikings are 7-2. The Packers are 6-3. And the Bears are in last place at 4-5. And so there's no doubt this has been one of the better divisions in the NFC. For a time there, it looked like the Bears may be one of the better teams, but the past few weeks have shown that that's not really the case. And so where I want to start today is the matchup of the Bears offense versus the Packers defense. Caleb Williams in his first year as a starter for the Chicago Bears. There was, of course, a lot of optimism this offseason that Caleb Williams was finally going to be the guy to come into Chicago and change things. And I honestly thought he would be better than he has been so far. It is still early in his career. I'm not going to say it's hopeless for the Bears, but let's just say it has not gone well so far. Caleb Williams total 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 32nd in completion percentage. Important to know that Jordan Love is only 1 spot above him in completion percentage at 31st. But the Bears offense, 24th scoring offense in the NFL, 30th in yards, 31st in yards per play. And so I think the idea of Caleb Williams coming into what many called the best situation maybe ever for a rookie quarterback to come into, it's not really looking like that. The offensive line looks terrible. The receivers haven't been great. Caleb Williams hasn't been great. The offensive coordinator was so bad that they've moved on from him, moving on from Shane Waldron this past week, moving to passing game coordinator Thomas Brown. So it has not been the, I think, early stretch of the season that the Bears fans really hoped for. There was a time there they were playing well, but recently that has not been the case. In the past 3 games, they only have 27 points. So that's 9 points each game. They lost to the Commanders 18-15, a close one. Lost to the Cardinals 29-9. And last week only put up 3 points, losing to the Patriots 19-3. And last week against the Patriots, they only had 142 total yards, went 1 for 14 on 3rd down. So this offense has been very bad, and it's no shock to see them move on from their offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron. I'm not sure that's going to drastically affect what happens here with the Bears offense. And I came across this very interesting stat for Caleb Williams, and this was posted by @ScottBarrettDFB. He says all QB seasons in @fantasy points data history since 2021. This is catchable throw rate minus screens with at least 250 attempts. So this is just looking at catchable passes. Number 1 is Joe Burrow at 80.5%. And then who do we have in last place at 106th? 1 spot behind Bryce Young, 2 spots behind Zach Wilson, a few behind Justin Fields. Caleb Williams, last place in 2024 at 63.6%. So Caleb Williams has been one of the most inaccurate passers in the past few years out of any quarterback in the entire NFL. So that has not been been a good start for Caleb Williams. He has not thrown a touchdown pass in the past 3 games. He also doesn't have an interception, so that is a good thing. 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. His past 3 games, Patriots 120 passing yards. Against the Cardinals, 217 passing yards. Against the Commanders, 131 passing yards. So the Bears' passing offense has been 30th this season in total pass yards. Caleb Williams is 25th in pass yards per game. And so this idea of the Bears having some great receiver weapons with DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, this whole group of Bears offensive players has not led to the success that many thought they would have. I honestly thought it would be much better than this. I thought they would be better than they were with Justin Fields, and I feel like they have not been so far this season. If you look at their blocking, they're 29th in pressure rate allowed, so their offensive line has been one of the worst. 2nd most sacks allowed at 38. Their rushing attack has not been much better. 24th in rush yards per game, 28th in rush yards per play. DeAndre Swift has had some nice games recently, better than early in the season. 18th in rush yards in the NFL at 564, averaging 4 yards a carry. So as you can tell, it has not been good for the Bears offense this year. The Packers defense has been pretty good overall. 11th best scoring defense, 12th in yards allowed, 13th in yards per play allowed. And I think if we look at the past game against the Detroit Lions, Sorry about that. Before the Packers bye week against the Lions, the Packers gave up 24 points to the Detroit Lions. 7 of those were a pick six from Jordan Love. And I think in that game against one of the best offenses in the NFL, in the Detroit Lions, the Packers defense played very well for the most part, and that was without Jair Alexander at corner and safety Evan Williams, who has been one of the better safeties in the league this year in the snaps that he's played. And it looks like this week the Packers should be getting back Jair and Evan Williams. And so I think that when you look at this Bears offense, that unless somehow magically adding a new offensive coordinator can drastically change things, which I just doubt is going to happen because Caleb Williams has not been good. I don't think it's all an offensive coordinator problem. Maybe it's part of it, but I don't think we're going to see a drastic change here. The Packers, I think, should be able to handle this Bears offense. The Packers' passing defense has been middle of the road, 15th in pass yards per game. The biggest weakness has been the Packers' pass rush, as we have talked about week after week after week. 24th in pressure rate at 32.2%. Preston Smith has been traded since the last game. I don't think it's a big loss considering he had not really been producing like he had been in years past. And the biggest strength of the Packers' defense this year, which is a drastic change from years past for the Packers, 10th in rush yards allowed per game and 7th in rush yards per play allowed at 4.2. So a top 10 rushing defense, which is very exciting to see as a Packers fan because for years and years, that has been the thing holding the Packers defense back. And so all in all, I would say it's been a pretty solid year for the Packers defense. They've had their bad moments, but overall, I think they've played pretty well. And when Jair's been healthy and Evan Williams with Xavier McKinney, some of these other guys, the defense has played at a top tier level. And so I think this week the Packers will be able to handle the Bears. I just think that pretty much in every area the Packers have been better versus when it comes to passing, when it comes to rushing, the Packers have been better overall. The one area hopefully the Packers can take advantage of this week is the weakness of the Bears offensive line. They have had some injuries recently. We'll keep an eye on if some of those guys are playing. But this is a game the Packers need to get some pressure because it has not been up to par with, I think, what the Packers need if they really want to go on a deep playoff run. If their pass rush can start playing at a much higher level, we should see even more from this defense. And one of the biggest strengths of this defense so far has been the takeaways. Third most takeaways, fourth in interceptions. And so we'll see if Xavier McKinney, Evan Williams, Jair can force a pick on Caleb Williams. So I think the Packers have a massive advantage when it comes to the Bears offense versus Packers defense. Now moving to the Bears defense against the Packers offense here. If we look at the Bears defense, it's definitely been their strength. It's not like the Bears are one of the worst teams in the NFL. They are 4-5, so only one game away from 500. So it hasn't been terrible, and that's mainly been because of this Bears defense. I already read to you how bad the offense has been. If the defense had not been this good, then they would probably be a 2-3 win team. But so far this season, the Bears are 7th in scoring defense, 13th in yards, 15th in yards per play. And they do have the best red zone defense in the NFL. And going up against this Packers offense, the Packers have had the 30th ranked red zone offense. So it may be tough in the red zone as it has been all year, especially against a unit that has been the best in all of the NFL. Their passing defense, 7th in pass yards allowed, 9th in pass yards per play. They have a very solid secondary, even without Jaquan Brisker, who has been injured for a while. I saw he's also placed on the IR today. Jalen Johnson's a great corner. The pass rush, 11th best pressure rate in the NFL, so a very solid pass rush, almost in the top 10, with 34.7% per NFL Pro. Lots of these stats are from NFL Pro. I think a few are from PFF. They have the 14th most sacks in the NFL. Their biggest weakness is their rush defense. I already said 7th pass defense when it comes to yards allowed. Their rush defense, on the other hand, 24th in rush yards allowed, 28th in rush yards per play allowed. So the Packers offense, who has been one of the better units in the league, 9th when it comes to scoring, 3rd most yards, and 3rd most yards per play. The Packers have been very good running the ball, and so I think the Packers need to get the running game going early in this one. The Packers have been dominating on the ground, 3rd most rush yards per game, 4th in rush yards per play. Josh Jacobs, 4th most rush yards per game, 4th most rush yards after contact. In last game against the Lions, the Packers were running the ball very well. They're averaging 6 yards a carry. The only problem was they got down early in the third quarter. I think it was around 24-3. And from that point on, when you're down by a few scores, you can't just keep running the ball because time is of the essence. And so you can't just allow the clock to roll down. So the Packers ran the ball really well against the Lions, but couldn't really keep doing it because of the big gap in the score because of Jordan Love's interception. But as I said, the Bears' run defense, I think the Packers should be able to take advantage on the ground in a big way against this Bears defense, and that's sort of how I think the Packers can really get things going. It's the biggest weakness on the Bears team. The Bears have been, similar to the Packers, pretty solid when it comes to takeaways, with the 7th most takeaways in the NFL. Now, the biggest thing for a lot of this season, the biggest theme has been trying to see Jordan Love. Is he healthy? Can he play fully healthy, or is he still being held back by these injuries? Luckily for the Packers, on Wednesday, he was a full participant at practice, which was one of the first times in a while. He had been limited with that groin injury. Against the Lions, he was struggling to escape the pocket. It looked like that injury was still really holding him back. Luckily, the Packers had a bye week, and it seems that Jordan Love is pretty much close to being fully healed, considering he was a full participant at practice. So that is a great sign. I think that when Love is fully healthy, he's much more effective breaking the pocket, escaping, and let's just hope that these injuries are behind Jordan Love. So far this season, the Packers have the 7th most pass yards per game, 4th most pass yards per play. Jordan Love, 15 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. He does have the 20th passer rating just because his accuracy has not been great. There have been a lot of drops, but as I said earlier, 31st in completion percentage. And when you throw 10 interceptions, that does massively hurt your passer rating. And I think we all know Jordan Love, he can make any throw. He can bring you back in the final moments of games. He's a very talented prospect. His issue has been his turnovers, with 10 interceptions, tied for the league lead in the NFL. And the past 2 games have not been great for him, with a total of 0 touchdowns to 2 interceptions in both of those games. And so there's no doubt, we've talked about it a lot, Jordan Love needs to clean up these interceptions. I brought up the other day that according to PFF, when you look at turnover-worthy play percentage, so that's just plays that are turnover-worthy. So let's say a defensive player drops an interception. That's a turnover-worthy play that will not show up as an interception, but it should have been if the defense did their job. It was a bad play by the quarterback. And Jordan Love is about around 15th in the NFL. So even though he has the most interceptions, it hasn't been quite as terrible. He just hasn't gotten quite as lucky as some of these other quarterbacks, where bad throws have turned into interceptions pretty much every time for Jordan Love. But he does need to clean that up going forward if the Packers want to, win against very good teams. The Packers' offensive line has been pretty solid. 9th lowest pressure percentage allowed at 30.2%. And the biggest issue is the Packers' red zone offense. 30th in the NFL this season. I already brought up the Bears have the best red zone defense in the NFL. And as I was looking into it, the biggest problem, it seems to me, in the red zone, lots of times it feels like, one of the problems, let me start over. One of the problems is that it feels like Jordan Love, at least the past few games, when he's escaping in the red zone, it feels like no one is open. He's trying to make something happen. I think part of that is on the receivers. Of course, the field is tighter, so it's harder to get open. But I think the biggest problem is the Packers' inability to run the ball in the red zone. Josh Jacobs has the 4th most rush yards in the NFL. But when you look at his red zone yards, he is 39th in the NFL. Only 28 rush yards on 20 attempts. So that is not good. He's averaging 1.6 yards per carry in the red zone, which is 45th in the NFL. So for whatever reason, the Packers have run the ball pretty solid at one of the best rates in the NFL when it comes to yards. When they get to the red zone, it has taken a big drop. I think it's probably the run blocking. And so even though the Packers have a top 10 offense, if they could just get their red zone offense just like middle of the road, this would probably be a top 5 offense in the NFL, because they have no problem getting to the red zone. It's just converting those into touchdowns. They have the 9th most red zone attempts per game. But as I said, haven't converted in the red zone. Love has been pretty solid in the red zone, 11 touchdowns to only 1 interception. So that's an area where if the Packers can really improve there, that's going to drastically change this offense. It's the biggest weakness so far. And as I already brought up, the Bears secondary has been very good. I think the Packers do have enough weapons to, cause some problems here for the Bears. I think it should be a good matchup, Packers offense versus the Bears defense. I think they're pretty similar matchup compared to the other matchup where the Bears offense has not been good. So I would say that this one is a little more evenly matched when you look at the Packers offense versus the Bears defense. So I'm going to give my score prediction here. This isn't Chicago. I just think that with the Bears offense as bad as it's been, not really scoring a lot of points, I think the Packers will put up more points than the Bears. So I'm going to say Packers win this game 24-17. Let me know your score prediction in the comment section down below. I will be out with a video when the game ends to give my reaction as I always do. So make sure you subscribe and turn on the post notifications so the second I put out that reaction, you will get notified. And you can see how the Packers performed against the Bears in this one. Thank you for watching. If you want more Packers content, feel free to subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys next time.